What's good, gamers? Today we're going to get into one of the most important topics regarding MMORPGs, botting and real-world trade. It's no secret that bots and real-world trading are a huge parasite in games. The economy is one of the most important aspects of an MMORPG. When bots and real-world trading are gone unpunished, it can completely ruin a game. We've seen this happen in countless games in the past, and if Intrepid doesn't take the proper steps necessary, we could be in trouble. When bots are doing money-making activities, it drives down the price of goods to the point that it doesn't even feel worth it to do it as a normal player. This is something Intrepid needs to get right in order to ensure the gameplay loop is still fun and enjoyable. Take New World for instance. The end game there is basically just making money, then gambling it away for BIS pieces. And that system as a whole isn't necessarily terrible. However, when the main ways to make money are all heavily botted or farmed by real players who sell the gold for real money, the ability to make gold in a game becomes much more difficult. Now, I'm not saying that New World would have been fine if it was never filled with bots, because we all know there's much more going wrong there than just real-world trade. But when there's next to nothing to gain from doing these methods, most people will either quit the game or just start buying gold to offset the grind themselves. Even Steven is an admitted whale in games in order to try and keep up with others because the devs wouldn't actually apply punishment for it. The community can see when developers turn a blind eye to things like this. Of course, you can't stop everyone from doing it, but by putting in specific systems to track these actions ahead of time, you can greatly decrease the amount of rule breakers. Luckily for us, Intrepid realizes these issues are detrimental to the success and enjoyment of a game and will work hard to prevent them. Now, I have been a part of the MMORPG community for a little over 20 years now. I've seen games die from bots and pay to win, and I've seen games survive with bots and pay to win. The difference in the two is how hard the developers work to combat the issue. Let's take RuneScape for an example. RuneScape is the most well-botted game. By being able to buy membership for the game with in-game gold, you give bots the ability to run an entire farm for free as long as they stay in profit. Now, the first issue here isn't actually the bots. It's developers for offering the ability to buy game time with in-game gold, eliminating one of the ways that makes replacing bot accounts difficult. If you aren't familiar with RuneScape, let me break this down for you. You can buy a bond, or similar to World of Warcraft's WoW token, with IRL money, and then you can sell them on the Grand Exchange for in-game money. So basically, you're doing microtransactions in-game for gold. Now, there's not anything wrong with microtransactions, but the way that they're going about it is all wrong. Luckily for RuneScape, the community is stepping up in addressing the problem themselves. Let's take a look at this Sir Pugger video.
This might just be the most epic RuneScape community-led project I've ever seen. Software that's very accurate at predicting if a player is a bot in-game, that also has the ability to track bots all across the game, and with a little twist I can use to catch bots muling their GP. I'm gonna assume that basically everyone watching this video knows what RuneLite is, a third-party client that also allows for third-party plugins. The RuneLite team verifies the plugins to make sure they're not malicious, or against RuneScape's game rules. Today I want to showcase a plugin that allows you to bust bots and track your progress on banning those bots. Huge shout out to Ferraric, who created this plugin, as well as the head developers working on this project. Let's do a quick showcase of what the plugin can do and how fun it is to use. There's a massive Lava Dragon bot farm running right now. When you see a player in game and right click on them, you can click Predict. The system gives a breakdown of their predictions with a primary prediction, which is what the system decides it thinks the player is. In this case, it's 100% sure that this account is a magic bot. You can track your own bot busting progress in the upper part of the plugin. The manual tab shows how many players you've manually uploaded by clicking predict and then clicking flag. Possible bans means on the highest scores they're either banned, their name was changed, or their stats are too low to pull the high scores data. The confirmed bans are actually feedback from Jagex that the account has been banned. You can also see how accurate you are at manually flagging bots. Let me explain how it all works. After you've installed the plugin, when you see another player in game, the location of the player, the username, and its gear are sent to the bot busting server, currently located location and gear data are not used in the prediction. If you do manually flag the player, an extra flag is stored in the database to pay more attention to that account. So the player is now in their system, and the system scrapes the high scores daily to get the player's stats. Based on those high scores alone, the system makes a prediction. So for example, it could look at the ratio of magic XP to total XP, as well as distribution of boss kill counts. That pretty easily predicts mage only Zulrah bots, since they only have Zulrah kill count, and most of the XP on the account is magic XP. Pretty soon, the value of the gear and or the location of the player may also factor into this prediction, which will add accuracy. The machine learning model actually learns because Jagex helps the team out by confirming which accounts are banned. Each day, the machine learning model gets that new data on players' bans and is retrained, so it's constantly getting better. Right now, only using the high scores data, the model is over 97% accurate at identifying bots. Let's go over how the team can start to track these bots to the point where we might discover where they're muling their gold. And let's take one of the largest long-running bot farms in the game for an example, Green Dragon bots. I hopped about 30 different worlds and collected over 100 Green Dragon bot usernames. I sent the usernames to the team and they pulled all the data for me on these accounts. And remember, the data is when any player with the plugin installed has come into contact with any of these accounts. The data shows the timestamp that the player saw the bot, the region it saw the bot in, and obviously the name of the bot. Now I filtered the data you see on screen for when more than one bot was seen together. Obviously you see a lot of these bots in the Ferox Enclave, the Grand Exchange, the Corporal Beast, which is where they teleport to get to the Green Dragons, but we can start to see some outliers that might be mule locations. I pulled 2 potential entries to focus in on. 3 of these accounts were seen together at the Tree Gnome Stronghold. What's even more compelling though is that 2 of these accounts were seen together in the southwest of Clan Wars. Not only have I caught LMS bots muling there before, but the team found similar locations for Zulrah bots muling as well. I'm gonna leave the actual hunting in game for these mules for an upcoming video. There are some really epic things the team has implemented using the data on banned bots and locations. You can actually make a heat map of bans for any region in RuneScape. Purple is the most dense while yellow is the least dense, aka more players were in those locations in the purple spots and then were banned.
So this got me thinking. Now, I know we aren't going to be able to use third-party plugins and add-ons and Ashes of Creation, but Intrepid could make a similar system to this internally. Part of this would be Intrepid having a system that keeps track of every single mob a player kills and a heat map of where they could spend their time. If you reported a player in-game, it could trigger the system to automatically look at the player mob kill counts and scans for anything out of the ordinary. Then, once an abnormality has been found, they can have a team member manually review the account's activity and where it spends most of its time in-game and tracks its trade as well to find the mule. But that's not the only use that we can get out of a heat map. Polling systems in games are a phenomenal way to keep your community involved with the development of your game, as well as keeping them happy. Again, we're going to talk about RuneScape for a second. RuneScape has an in-game poll booth where you can go and vote on changes being made to the game before they're actually fully made to see where the community stands on them before implementation. However, there is one big problem with this. PvP-oriented players will hate vote on PvE-oriented polls because it's not an update for their content, and vice versa. However, if properly implemented, this heat map technology could target the players actively doing certain types of activities to see if they want the change instead of just asking everyone. PvP polls would go to PvP players and PvE polls would go to PvE players, with a little room in between for people who participate in both forms of content equally. To me, this is extremely important in keeping content from being put into the game that nobody wants or that would only help a very small portion of the player base while hurting others. Now, I know that Intrepid has a ton to work on, but setting up small things like this before launch is actually extremely important to the long-term success of the game. We all know that people will take things at face value, and if they aren't impressed early on, they typically won't stick around. If the game gets overrun by bots and real-world trade early on, I'm afraid Intrepid won't be able to recover, just like New World and the Steam Family Share fiasco. Eventually they disabled Family Share, but it should have never been on in the first place and the damage had already been done. It allowed for 10 to 20 bots in New World to run off of one purchase, which is insane. Now, I'm 30, and this is the last hope for MMORPGs for me, and if this project fails, I'm probably gonna start getting into like World War II history or smoking meat like a normal middle-aged man. But until then, I hope you're here with me for the ride. Be sure to drop a sub and a like, as I'm new to YouTube and need all the help I can get with the algorithm. Maybe share it to a friend who's on the fence about the game, and who knows, you might just get one more person to game with come launch. That's all I've got for the day. Peace out.